We like to think of our homes and workplaces as safe havens, places where logic and reality rule. But sometimes the veil thins, and we're forced to realize we aren't as alone as we thought. Here are 3 chilling accounts of the paranormal. I worked the graveyard shift at a historical archive located in an old converted mansion. My job was simple: monitor the temperature controls and ensure the sensitive documents were secure. One Tuesday at 3 a.m., I heard the sound of a heavy typewriter clicking in the west wing. The problem? That wing had been cleared of all equipment years ago. When I entered the room, the clicking stopped instantly. As I turned to leave, I felt a freezing gust of wind, even though all the windows were sealed, and heard a clear, dry cough right into my ear. I didn't stay to see who was clearing their throat. I recently moved into a studio apartment in the city. About a week in, I started hearing my own voice coming from the bathroom, just short, clipped sentences like, "Hello?" or "Is someone there?" One night, I was watching TV when the channel changed on its own to static. In the reflection of the black screen, I saw a woman sitting on the edge of my bed. She was incredibly pale, and her jaw was hanging at an impossible angle. When I jumped up and turned around, the bed was empty, but the indentation on the mattress remained for several seconds before slowly smoothing out. I live on the 14th floor of a modern high-rise. Last month, during a heavy thunderstorm, I was reading in bed when I heard a rhythmic scratching on the glass of my balcony door. Thinking it was just debris from the wind, I ignored it. But then, the scratching turned into a heavy, deliberate banging. I pulled back the curtain, expecting to see a loose branch or a bird. Instead, I saw a pair of long, gray hands pressed against the glass from the outside. There is no ledge, no scaffolding, nothing but a 140-foot drop to the street below. Those hands stayed there for 3 minutes before sliding down out of sight. I used to work the closing shift at a local community center. The pool area was always the creepiest place to be after hours. The acoustics made every drip of water sound like a footstep. One night, after everyone had left, I was doing my final walkthrough when I heard the distinct sound of a splash in the deep end. I ran over, thinking a kid had stayed behind, but the surface was perfectly still. As I turned to leave, I saw a dark shape at the bottom of the pool, a human-sized mass just resting in the 12-foot section. I grabbed the reach pole, but the moment the hook touched the water, the shape dissolved like ink. Then I heard a wet, slapping sound on the tiles behind me. I turned my flashlight toward the locker room entrance and saw a trail of dripping wet footprints leading directly into the dark, even though I was the only person with a key. I didn't finish my rounds that night. I just clocked out and never went back into that building alone. When I was 19, I worked as a live-in nanny for a family in a very old, renovated farmhouse. They had a high-tech baby monitor with a motion sensor camera. One night, while the parents were out, the monitor on my nightstand buzzed, indicating movement in the nursery. I opened the app and saw the baby sleeping soundly. But in the corner of the frame, near the rocking chair, there was a strange distortion, like static shaped into the silhouette of a tall man. I watched, frozen, as the static slowly leaned over the crib. I bolted down the hallway and burst into the room, screaming to scare off whoever was there. The room was empty. The baby was fine. But when I checked the recorded footage 5 minutes later, the video showed me running into the room, but it also showed the static figure standing directly behind me the entire time I was checking the crib. It didn't disappear until I turned the lights on. I slept in the living room with every light in the house on until the parents got home. I'm a graduate student, and I used to spend my nights in the university library's archives on the 3rd floor. It's a silent floor, and after 10 p.m. it's usually deserted. I was sitting in a cubicle tucked between two rows of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves when I heard a book slide off a shelf in the next aisle. I ignored it, but then another fell, and another. It sounded like someone was walking down the aisle, dragging their hand across the spines of the books. I stood up to tell whoever it was to knock it off, but the aisle was empty. That's when I noticed something impossible. The books weren't just falling. They were being pulled out and stacked neatly in the middle of the floor. I watched, paralyzed, as a heavy encyclopedia rose into the air and was placed on top of the pile by invisible hands. I grabbed my laptop and ran for the elevator. As the doors were closing, I saw a face peer out from behind the end of the bookshelf. It looked like an old man, but his eyes were just solid ink-black pits. He didn't move. He just watched me until the door shut. If you've ever had an encounter you can't explain, leave a comment below and hit the subscribe. Be careful what you look for in the dark. It might just be looking back.